Well, good morning, and thank you for being with us. You are the Chief Compliance and Community Development Officer for Mercantile Bank. Tell us, what does a Chief Compliance and Community Development Officer do?
I think that is, first of all, thank you for inviting me to come over and chat with you about Mercantile Bank and about leadership. So I appreciate the opportunity. But Chief Compliance and Community Development Officer, that's unique, and I don't think you're going to see that in most organizations because you get the people side put in with the detailed side, right?
Yes.
I am responsible for everything that's regulatory compliance in the banking world. So, and some other things as well. But whatever can fall under, as you know, financial institutions are examined, and we get consumer regulations that we have to comply with. So my team handles anything that has to do with the consumer compliance aspects of banking. Under the compliance aspects, banks are also regulated in terms of how we reinvest in the communities that we serve, and it's called the Community Reinvestment Act. So in most other industries, the community development aspect might be under a PR function or a marketing function or just under philanthropy in general. In our world, you will often see that the community development is under the regulatory side of the bank because of the regulatory exam that we go through from a community reinvestment standpoint. So that's kind of how those two titles are put together for me. And I started out on the community development and grew into the compliance. And so they kept the titles together. So they kept the role together instead of, separating it out because I had started in the community development side. So
I love the combination of really having accountability on both sides within your organization because both are critical. This morning we're talking with Sonali Allen, and she again is Chief Compliance and Community Development Officer for Mercantile Bank. Tell me what draws you to the community development side.
I've never figured out if the job did it for me or if I don't really, it doesn't resonate. Like, how did I get into it? Was it me as a person or did the job just get me involved with community development? But I think if I go back, my engagement with community in Grand Rapids comes really from my former mother-in-law, Sonali Allen. She was very, very involved in the community. She truly believed in giving back to the community, and I was, was 19, I think, when I first met her, and she was just this little fireball, very engaged in the community. She had an organization called CCR that she ran. She ran the Historically Black College Tour, actually started the Historically Black College Tour in Grand Rapids. Really? So a lot of that engagement, I think, and the connections came from her. And watching her and going, wow, she has a significant impact in the community. And then my focus before coming to Mercantile Bank, I was at another financial institution, and I actually managed the offices in what I call the core city on the southeast side of Grand Rapids. So I had all of those offices under me, and there's a lot of community development work that goes into that, in serving low and moderate income populations. And so it was a natural transition, I think, for me to become involved in community development work. I had a natural interest. I had a real desire to help clients that may not have had the historical knowledge, may not have had the family experience with dealing with money, and needed more education, more support in understanding the banking world.
Yeah. How great, though, that you had that vision and that understanding of that need from the banking institution. I think it's easy for any of us to get caught up in our world and what we need or how we operate day to day, and not always put ourselves in the shoes of the people that we're trying to serve.
Right, and the reality is, if you think about money, how did you learn about money? Most of us don't consciously think about how we learn about money. But you learn about money generally from your parents, right?
That's true.
And it's not a conscious thought unless it's not really required in schools. Now it is in Michigan. But you learn by watching other people. And if other people didn't have money and they struggled with money, how do you learn to properly manage money? You have no experience. You have no exposure. And I think we often we just think people are bad at money management. They might be, but it may be because the right things didn't present themselves.
That's right.
Their parents didn't know either. Their parents didn't have resources. And so you have to make an effort to understand that there are those people and they can still succeed if you provide them with the supports and the knowledge.
That is a great perspective. How has that played out for you at Mercantile Bank, in your role? Is there a way in which that understanding has impacted the work you're doing there?
So I think when I started with Mercantile, it's almost 25 years ago that I've been at Mercantile Bank.
Congratulations.
So, and the bank started in 1997. We are the largest community bank in Michigan, headquartered in Grand Rapids. So
Wonderful.
I think that the opportunity I had, because I started 25 years ago, was that we didn't have a CRA or community development person, right? There wasn't a dedicated person. I am the first person. So I had this opportunity to build it. And I think my knowledge that there is, because I worked with the clients in my former world, I knew what it took to serve those that may have had financial challenges, those that didn't have the same resources as other people I was able to develop programs that kind of had that understanding and understood that financial education was really key at every level, right? At youth level, at high school levels, at young adult levels, at college levels, and even for seniors. I remember a story when I first got into banking. I opened an account for a young person and I gave her a checkbook. In those days we wrote checks. And she overdrew within the first day. And I picked up the phone, I called her and I said, you don't have any money in your account. Why are you writing checks? And she said, but I have checks. And I'm like, yeah, no. But that's not how this works. Checks don't mean you can keep writing them. You actually have to have money in your bank account, right?
Wow.
And I often share another story, and that was my daughter. This is why I stopped using an ATM. And I realized that children learn from watching their parents, right? So we were driving down years ago a division, and there were a lot of people lined up. I think it was at God's Kitchen, and she's like, "Why are those people there?" And I'm like, "They don't have any food, honey. So they get food here. They're homeless, and the homeless don't have a place to stay, and they don't always have food. So they get food here." And she's like, "Well, why don't they just go to an ATM?"
Right. Because you can just pull up and get money.
Pull up and get money.
Interesting.
If you put your card in, you get money. So those kinds of behaviors I learned from serving a lot of other clients. So came to Mercantile, had that knowledge, and was able to create some programs that could meet that gap and bridge that gap, hopefully.
That's an incredible story and so powerful, I think, in terms of so often I'm not sure that people understand that there are banks like Mercantile Bank who have that vision, who are taking that next step in reaching out to the community and trying to help them succeed as well.
Right. Well, good customers, people that understand banking make good customers for us in the long term.
Yes.
It's a win-win situation.
Yes, that's
Truly,
very true. Yeah. And I know you're very involved in the community as well. Tell us a little bit about your own involvement.
So currently I'm just serving on the Genesis Nonprofit Housing Board. Previous to that, I've served in a couple of different boards. Based on the work that I do, I get the opportunity, of course, to engage in a lot of different areas, a lot of different boards. Served on the Habitat Board, DA Blodge at St. John's.
Oh, wonderful.
I'm trying to think. I'm going to get back on the Home Repair Services Board At some point, I've served on the CDFI board. Primarily, I try really hard to focus on the areas that I have some expertise in or translate to my day-to-day job. I know that I don't always advise people to do that. I tend to stick to that just because that helps me understand the work that I do better and also makes connections for the work that I do. I feel like that has a little bit more impact on the work that I do.
Absolutely. Talk to us a little bit about leadership. You obviously are in a very important leadership role. And I'm curious, what are maybe one or two things that you feel helped you along the way in, your leadership journey as you were growing as a leader?
I just did a leadership class yesterday for Treetops. I don't know if you know what Treetops is, and that's organization that serves immigrants and refugees women that have come to the United States, and I'm an immigrant. And we were talking about the immigrant experience and how the immigrant experience creates certain leadership skills, right? Yeah. So one of those is tenacity, right? This problem solving, because you come to a new environment that you have to navigate on your own, right? And there is nobody to help you navigate that. So I think that tenacity, that problem solving, I think those probably were mine. In addition to this philosophy that I could probably do it. Like, if you give it to me, I'm gonna do it. Like, I'm gonna find a way, right? The hours don't matter. So again, I think that translates to tenacity. And I think the other part is people. It's being able to read people, understand people, and give them some empathy, give them some space, the ability to connect with human beings. Yeah. I think that's, if I were to say what were mine, I think those were mine. And again, I say that probably comes from my experience and my own personal journey. Not that leadership skills can't be learned, but I think sometimes if you horn into the skills that you already have or that you've had to develop based on your environment and your circumstances, it could be totally different for someone else.
But I do think those kinds of skill sets, when you think about being in an environment that is totally new to you and you have to learn how to navigate that parallels so closely to a lot of the huge changes that we're seeing, whether you look at AI or you look at economic situations, tariffs, etc. There are lots of things on the landscape of COVID. We had never dealt with anything like that in this country.
Adaptability. I think that was one of the things I said, adaptability and resilience, right?
Exactly.
Those are leadership skills. We don't always see those as leadership skills. Correct. And sometimes they might be the more quiet leadership skills. Yes. But adaptability and resilience, I think, are huge in terms of leadership.
Especially in this fast changing environment that's not slowing down, it's going to continue to speed up. Yeah. And so I think that's really critical. If you were talking to a fairly new leader who's just starting that leadership journey, what is one tip you might give them?
Gosh, that's hard. There's a lot of tips that I would probably give them. But I think it's I don't believe in the phrase that you can be your true authentic self at work. I don't, because really, my philosophy, I'm a little old school. There's nobody wants to see your true authentic self. Nobody does. But be true, own who you are, okay? Because I think people are good at reading other people. And if you don't own who you are, everything comes out as fake. Yeah. And other people will read that. Yes. So figure out who you are and try to own that and not be someone else. And then develop that person that you are. I think that's what I would probably tell young people, because I think you want to become somebody else. You see somebody and you want to become that person, and you
Right.
try to, sometimes you forget who you are in doing that. And the younger you are, the more opportunities, the more you want to climb, the faster you want to climb. And I think people are good at reading people.
Yes.
And if you own who you are and then develop those skills that you think you are, versus trying to take somebody else's and becoming somebody
Yes.
else, I think that's probably what I would tell people first.
I really appreciate that, because I do think we have to, as leaders, be very tied into our values and who we are in that. And if you aren't consistently following your values and living those out, again, as you said so well,
Absolutely.
people will know that that's not genuine, and you'll lose credibility as a leader.
Yes.
Yeah.
And your confidence comes from being who you are. I mean, it took me a long time to realize that your confidence comes by owning who you are. If you're constantly trying to be something or someone else, you are always going to doubt yourself. And you're not going to have the confidence. The sooner you come to owning who you are, understanding who you are, and stop trying to be somebody else, I think the more confident you become. And I think confidence is another thing, important part of leadership, right? You may not know everything, and you won't. In the world that we live in today, none of us will know everything. But it is the confidence to say, and the confidence that someone else has in you that says you may not know, but you will figure it out.
Yes.
And how you display and portray that confidence, I think carries you a long way.
Oh, I so much wisdom in what you've shared. Thank you so much for being our guest. How could people get in touch with you if they want to know more about Mercantile Bank or reach out to you in some way?
Sure,
what would be the best way for them?
A phone call. I mean, my number is probably out there. Call Mercantile Bank, the main number, and ask for Sonali Allen.
Okay.
Or my email, and absolutely, sallen@mercbank.com. But the best way probably, or the easiest way, if you can't remember my email, is to call the main number, which is right there in Google Mercantile Bank, as we talk about in technology.
Correct.
And ask for the main number, and ask for me, and you will get transferred directly to my line.
Wonderful. Thank you again so much.
This has
been great.
Thank you.
You're out there leading the way. Great information for the rest of us.
Thank you so much for inviting me to come. It's been great.
You're welcome.